You've landed in the Dream Gardener podcast. Through storytelling from the amazing guests I interview, you will learn how to gather, plant, nurture, and reap all the benefits of pursuing your dreams. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Dream Gardener, and I'm Barbara Donis, your host. I have another amazing person that's following her dreams, and her name's Joan Wendland, and we met at, I think, Senior Services in town, and just amazing when you get to find out the interests that people have, and when they surface in a person's life. And so today Joan is going to share with us all her journey in following her dream. Maybe, I don't know if it's just one dream, maybe we'll have a couple of them pop up, who knows. But Joan's going to be just sharing with us what she's learned along the path of finding and discovering her dreams. So thanks for coming, Joan. It's really nice to have you here.
Well, I'm loving doing this. I feel very honored that you wanted to know something about me.
Well, it's just, there's so many interesting people out there. And unless you take the time to actually talk with people and get to know them, you miss out on a lot of really interesting things and things that can just like inspire people. So that's, you've got a really, and at some point, I love, okay, this age thing. Sometime, if you want to bring that up, it's so inspiring to hear people say they don't have like a negative association with whatever age they are. They're just this age, and how I hear it is it's so inspiring to hear what age a person is, and they're still learning, they're still doing different things, new things, and it just gives a whole nother perspective of what being whatever age can look like in a positive way. So when you want to share that,
Okay.
I'm hoping.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Well, I was born 80 years ago on a farm.
Okay. 80 years ago. Can you?
Yeah, sometimes I can't believe, but my bones, my joints tell me. At any rate, when you're talking about dreams, living on a farm, it's very practical, very hardworking. I didn't even know what dreams were, except when you went to sleep at night, you had a dream. But as far as something else going on in my life, the expectation was to be a wife and mother. And, my mother said when I went to high school, well, you take home ec and typing. Home ec, you're going to,
Yep.
know how to, feed your family, and typing, in case your husband dies, then you have something to fall back on.
Okay.
So I didn't have any dreams about doing something else until I came to my 40s and I was divorcing.
Wow. Okay. So a life-changing event is what, and maybe you had dreams before then, but what made it really obvious then is a major life shift.
Yes. And even then, I didn't really have a dream to do something else. It's just that I was in counseling because of the divorce. And I had written something and, gave it to the counselor. We discussed it. And he said, by the way, that is beautiful poetry. And it was like somebody kind of waking me up saying, you have permission to write. You have something else besides being wife and mother. And so where I didn't dream of being a writer, it was just like, okay, here is a tool. Here is something that will help me sort out things in life. If I don't have a counselor, if I don't have a friend to talk with, I have the page. And so it came from that, it kept evolving from that.
That's interesting that you bring up the word permission, though. So it must have really sounded like, I wonder how much permission, that word just really stands out to me. And I wonder how many, people that might even just be registering with them. Did you feel like you needed, you probably when you were younger didn't feel you needed permission to dream because you weren't even, dreaming wasn't in your reality.
Right.
But something happened right there.
That's an interesting question that you say that, because I never thought of that, because other people had said things about, not about writing, but about, whatever, about you're going to do well in life and whatever. For some reason, I think that I really valued him. He really helped me.
The therapist?
The therapist.
Okay.
He really helped me be able to communicate better, to become a better person than I was. So I think I just took it to heart that, he really recognized something about me that I could believe.
And cared about you.
Yes. Yeah. So that's probably, to give permission. It's an interesting word that I use, but it's like he really did.
And like maybe you were just, not to get all psychological, but maybe you just needed, maybe you had those dreams beforehand and now you needed the permission to start exploring.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Whatever. But, so
Yeah.
it's never too late to start dreaming then.
No. I really found that. I really found that out. In fact, then I kept writing, journaled and all of that. But it wasn't until, I entered, when I had to go back to work after divorce, I worked as a waitress and cleaning lady. Those were the skills that I had. Mm-hmm. And so then over time I worked into the business world and working on computers. Somebody was willing to train me on computers. And then I was let go from work, from the company. It was
Okay.
it was a climate that was going on. And then I had to get another job. And then the second company I worked for, I was laid off again after 4 years on April Fool's Day. I'm not making that.
No, that's funny you even say that.
Uh-huh.
I had I had a divorce from my first husband, and the court date was April Fool's Day. So they just talk about, and I wasn't even sure if it was like, is this real?
Somebody's pranking me.
Yeah, I was wondering. But so April Fool's Day, you were laid off again?
Yes, I was laid off again for the second time. And so my parents were going to take a trip to Newfoundland, and they knew that I loved nature. They would pay for my way if I would like to go with them, and before I did the job hunt. And I said, I'm there. And so I went. And while I was there, I had a story idea. And so when I came home, I said, before I do the job hunt, it's only going to take me a week or two. I'm going to write this down so I don't forget it. It's fresh in my mind, and so I'm going to write it down. And so 1 or 2 weeks became 6 months. And it became like novella length type book. And I thought, at that point in my life, I had been sending my writing out and received all kinds of rejection slips. In fact, the last one, it took them a year to reject me.
Oh my.
Yeah. And so here I am in my 50s now, having this story idea, this book idea. And I said, I'm not even going to send this out to anybody. I am just going to learn how to publish a book. I'm going to do this because I want a book in my hand before I die. For no other reason than
Really?
that. Yeah, for no other reason than that.
Wow.
And so I didn't know how to do it, but by that time I joined a writing guild in Chicago, and the president had published her own book. So I asked her if she would walk me through the steps, which she did. So I got the finished product, and she said, okay, now you need to have somebody give you a quote. Like when you read a book, you see these quotes from famous people or organizations or something
I
saying.
thought you meant a dollar amount.
No.
Like, okay.
And so that they say, oh, this is a really good book. You're really going to want to read this. And so I didn't know anybody, but I called a friend, former sister-in-law, as a matter of fact, and she lived in Sedona, and she said, well, I rent the guest house of a Hollywood producer. And so she said, I think he'd do this as a favor for me.
Oh my gosh.
So I sent him off the book, manuscript form, typed out. He called me almost immediately, and he said, you have written a real gem.
Oh my gosh.
He said, I will give you a quote, but he said, I also want to buy the option for the book to make into a movie.
Oh my gosh.
And so here was
Wow.
another person saying, hey, you've written something really good that somebody else of note.
It was like validating.
Right, yes, yes.
Yeah. Like Inspector 13, stamp of approval.
Right, right.
That was with the underwear, I think.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Wasn't it jockey underwear? There's Inspector 13.
Oh,
Whatever. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't remember that, but that's good omission. It's like
She was an old lady, and she was just approving the waistbands and stuff like that. It was just funny.
they could do that with me now. So it's like my expanding waistline.
Oh, okay. Did you finish that part of your story?
Yeah, well, then, he did. He bought the option for the movie, and this was like 20 some years ago.
Oh, wow.
And there were all kinds of stops and starts on it. I mean, it opened me to the whole world of how movies get made, and it's really an incredible process. Mainly up front, somebody's got to be a money person, somebody's got to be of some star quality that says, oh, I really like this part, I really want to be in it, kind of thing. And so I had to just kind of sit back and wait, although it also, I'd never published a book before, but okay, here I did. And so he was going to do the screenplay adaptation of the book. He sent it back to me, and I thought it was awful. And so I thought, I don't have anything to lose. I said, what drew you to this story? I said, the only thing your screenplay and my book have in common are the names of the characters.
Oh, wow.
And so I thought, I don't have anything to lose. I'm just going to say this. He said, well, what would you do? And so I had the format. So I started writing my own dialogue and doing, we then co-authored the screenplay.
Oh, wow.
So I had that, and he listened to me, He said, well, what is this person, what is the motivation? So it was a real learning process. So here, this opened me to another piece of creativity.
Right. Wow. And you never would have been able to have dreamt that. I mean,
No.
You didn't even dream becoming a writer.
No.
Okay, so how did you back up a little bit? How did you even know, because what I want readers, what I want readers, you're reading this right now. I want listeners or viewers to be able to, because I believe that we have gotten so deprogrammed to paying attention to our dreams. Like you said, that wasn't even in your realm when you were growing up. I think there's some people that remember as kids being, dreaming about this and that. And I think a lot of kids have been told, or young adults, whatever, have been told, your dreams are silly. You've got to be serious. You can't make money on this. And so we've just kept, even myself included, have kept ignoring those signs of a dream bubbling up. And so I want to have people start getting an idea of what does this dream, when you're having a dream happen, how does it feel, or a thought, or how does it feel? How does it look? How do you experience? How can you identify it? How have you identified it?
Oh my God, it was like having the movie thing, that was incredible. I mean, I was elated. I was so excited. I thought, now here is something, beyond me, that is me, that gets a chance to be heard. And it was just the most thrilling thing. I mean, I just lived on this.
Okay, but I'm going back, even before that movie or the screenplay even happened. I mean, back when you had the therapist said that this is really nice poetry, and just like that. What was the word?
Validation.
No,
Permission.
Permission. He was like the permission granter. And then you just started journaling. Was there a idea that surfaced that I want to become a writer, or I want to write a book?
It didn't happen right away.
Okay, that's
giving me permission to write more or less was a tool for me. Okay, I can use this to help sort out my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became, okay, then I wrote another piece of poetry, and it was like, oh, well, maybe somebody else would like to hear this as well. So that's when I started sending things out.
Okay.
And so then that was just kind of a little niggle, because I had never been taught to believe or hope in anything other than being a wife and mother. Okay, I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work out so well, except got two great kids. But
Well, and it led you to writing.
yes, that whole thing led me to writing because I was in therapy.
Right. And who knows, we look back on like these obstacles or negative things that happen in our life, and it's real easy to think, well, we don't realize that that could have been a catalyst for you becoming the writer, even to
Mm-hmm.
begin with.
Yes.
Because if you stayed married, and you
Yeah.
got, who knows?
Right.
You might never have.
Right. Well, and with working in the business world and getting laid off, that was another catalyst, because the second time I was laid off, I had the story idea for the book that became the screenplay.
Okay. So how did that feel? How did when that idea, because when you originally, there was a point where you didn't have it
Mm-hmm.
figured out like a screenplay.
Right.
How did you get that idea? How did you become aware of it?
Aware of the screenplay?
Mhm.
Well, he said that it would make a movie, and so that was his idea. It was his recognition recognition of the book, that we can adapt this into a screenplay. I mean, I never thought of that. He had the idea, and then I went along for the ride.
And how, that's really fascinating to you were just going along with this writing, not having any attachment to like how, like really the true purpose of it. You were just doing it because you enjoyed it. It helped you process,
Mm-hmm.
and then just brought it to somebody thinking you want to share it. Somebody else might want to hear it. And then somebody else came up with, oh, have you ever thought about this idea?
Right.
And you were like, yeah, wow.
Well, and then further it spun out, because here was the producer that was saying, make a good screenplay. And so then I went back to the person who was walking me through the process of publishing the book, because at that point I hadn't published it. And so then I published it. And then I used that and in fact, the person that was helping me with the book, she said, okay, what's your business plan? What's your marketing plan? What's your advertising? I said, I don't know. I've never done any of that. I never wrote a book before. I never did a screenplay before. Never done any of that.
Yeah.
And so that was just overwhelming to me.
Yeah.
And so then when I get stuck on writing, I go out for a walk. So I said, okay, I'm going to go take a walk. And this bus went by me that said, a sign on it said, act locally, think globally. I said, that's my business plan. You start small. I start small where I live, and try to get myself, have a little article in the local little paper. And I did a couple of them. That got noticed by a Chicago Tribune reporter. She called and she said, I want to do a whole column on you. She said, I don't mean just a couple columns. She said, this is going to be a whole page in the women's section of the Chicago Sunday Tribune.
Wow.
And she said, syndicated in 52 cities in the United States and Canada.
Wow.
And so that was the fact that I had the screenplay thing behind me. That was a selling point, to interest.
Mm-hmm.
Here it was that I had, well, first of all, I self-published, and then it wasn't self-publishing now, and assisted publishing is, what a lot of people do. Then it was really kind of looked down upon. And so
why is that?
I don't know, that because it didn't have the backing of a big publishing company saying, oh, this is a publishable book.
Okay.
So if you did it yourself, it was just kind of vanity press kind of thing.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so, so then I had this as a selling point, and so it taught me. It taught me about sales. It taught me about marketing. Taught me about advertising, and so then I started to. Then I really started to dream. I said, "Oh, I don't have to go back to working 9 to 5. This is going to support me. I'm going to sell books, screenplay. Let's see, what else was I going to do? Oh, and brush off my high school speaking skills, and I'm going to go out there and talk
Wow.
and get paid for it." And so it, as a consequence, it just kept unfolding, and I kept saying, "Oh, I can do that. I don't have to go back to the 9 to 5 world," which I didn't like anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, it just kept unfolding, and I kept grabbing onto it and saying, "Okay, let's go with this."
I think that's wonderful because you're about, I don't know if I don't want to say the first person, but it seems like that can be a big obstacle in people too when they have a dream. Thinking that they have to have it structured, all the steps laid out, and you really don't. You could just go fly by the seat of your pants.
Oh,
really.
and I did. I had no idea how to do any of this. I mean, I got coaching from the person in the Writers Guild, certainly, and other people that can. But part of it was, I just kind of knew intuitively how to do this. I knew how to, did a lot of cold calling on sales. I mean, I would have never dreamed of doing that. But they bought my book. And I sold myself to appearing at Barnes & Noble. And they said, "Oh, this sounds interesting, but what are you going to do? What are you going to talk on? You make an appearance." And I said, nobody knows me. I'm not a published author. Why would people come in to Barnes & Noble? And so I thought, I'm going to offer a creative writing workshop. They're going to come in for their own reasons. And that's exactly what I did. And it's not like it's what I do now. I don't teach. I facilitate. I tell people the positive thing I hear, because that's what makes me want to go on. If people say, "Oh, this is a piece of,"
Yeah.
that just shuts me down.
Mm-hmm.
And so my theory was, if you give people positive strokes, they're going to say, "Oh, I could do more of that." Where if you say the opposite, "Oh yeah, well, I always knew that. I can't do that."
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I do now, and that's what I did then, and people responded to that.
Wow.
So then I went out and sold myself to other places, organizations, women organizations, as a speaker, and got paid for it. Why not?
Of course, why not? And especially nowadays with how many people are wanting to write books.
Yeah.
Or just, and like you said, write in capacities, screenplays, things that they didn't even consider.
Mm-hmm.
But books especially, it seems like everybody's, out there wanting to write a book. And there's so many individual fascinating experiences to read about.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering too, like you mentioned with obstacles, like when you've been faced with obstacles, something that's going to stop you. You sound like you just figure it out. You mentioned one was you just step back and you go out in nature, go for a walk. But what other things do you do when you're just, things aren't working, you're just stopped in your dream?
Well, that happened when I had to go back to work, because it's like, here I was moving along with the screenplay, that I was going out and speaking, I was doing creative writing workshops, etc. And I just didn't have enough money. It wasn't producing enough money for me to continue. I had a small condo then, I had a car payment, I had a mortgage payment. And so, and I was doing pretty well until my book distributor, and then you had to have a book distributor, where they kept a stockpile of books. Barnes & Noble would contact them saying, "I want X number of books."
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that now. It's print on demand
Okay.
digital printing. But then it was that, well, anyway, I was getting paid by my book distributor, getting paid for speaking, going out, and whatever. My book distributor went bankrupt.
Mm.
So that, and I was just so angry. I knew I had to go back to work in the business world, which I just hated the thought of.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how am I going to do this? Well, writing meant a lot to me at that point, and so I would get up at 5:30 in the morning and write before I went to work.
Oh.
And so that's how I kept it. I kept it going,
Okay.
And then I still kept being able to go out because I started working for a temp agency. So then I could kind of name if I got a place to go speak or teach, then I could just not work that day.
Okay.
And so, that's kind of how I worked around that.
That's interesting that you brought up the getting up early to do writing in the morning. I did a similar thing because it's like that was my only chunk of time that I could do something for myself and stick with it versus doing it at the end of the day where
Mhm.
it's so easy to just,
Yes.
other things are more important and it,
In fact, good example, one director that I work for, he said, I want these overhead slides, done for this important whatever. And he said, can you come in early in the morning and do this? And I said, no, I can't come early in the morning. That's my writing time, but I can stay late. I thought, I'll give you my burned out brain. You're not having my fresh brain. And both of us got satisfied because he had a good job done at the end of the day anyway. But
Okay. Oh wow, so that component right there sounds like in order for you to pursue your dreams, you also had to make it be a priority in your life
yeah,
and set that structure and those boundaries. So that's a really important. I think that's a really important tool. Make sure you're taking notes on this. Well, I mean, think about it, especially being a woman. There's always so many things to do. And regardless if you've got a family or it's just you or you've got you and your husband, whatever, everybody's busy. They've got obligations. And it's too easy to get all distracted with all these different things. And then at the end of the day, be left with, what did you call it? Your brain
but my
fried
my
up?
my fried brain.
Yeah. Yeah, you're left with fry brain and fry body and fry energy and nothing to be able to devote to something that's really precious to you. So that was a very, I don't know if I want to say courageous, but just a really very smart thing to do with carving that time out first thing in the morning. Which leads me to wondering, so by doing that, and it doesn't have to be specifically you carving out that time first thing in the morning and then how you felt, but I'm interested in how does it feel to be living your life when you're following your dream, like when you woke up in the morning and you put some time into it, or just in general, how does it feel to be living your life or supporting your dream versus before when you weren't and your dream wasn't even, at the office jobs, it wasn't even apparent.
It was, first of all, when I had to go back to the business world, because I was so naive, actually. Here I was in my 50s when I did all of this, and I so thought that because this all fit me. This was what I knew how to do.
The
And
office work?
No, not the office work, the writing,
Writing.
the teaching, the speaking, all of that. That was really me.
Okay.
And that the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, was really going to support me in this. Well, it got down to it didn't. The reality, I had to, nobody was giving me money for my mortgage, my car, my, whatever. So I'm a realistic person. And so then it was like the dream got tarnished.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt like I'd been, thrown under the bus, so to speak. And, but I kept going. I kept going with it, but with less enthusiasm. Every time I went out and I was able to do something that was great, but it was with less enthusiasm than in the beginning. You know, it's like there's a thing about first times. You can never repeat a first time because the first time, and it's always so wonderful, and well, maybe not wonderful, but you know, using the first times that are wonderful, you know, and you
Yeah.
think, oh my God, and trying to repeat it, it doesn't. You don't get it with that same feeling. Does that answer the question?
Um, I think so.
I mean, I kept going with the dream of doing it, but it was more that I was just kind of putting in the time for it. You know, I didn't feel enthused about doing any other writing until I got laid off again.
That blessing in disguise.
Yeah, yeah. And so then I wrote my second book called Alice in Corporateland. And so it was
I read that one. Yeah.
a satire, the satire on the whole business world. And I mean, I had great fun, great relish in, you know, giving these characteristics to these
Yeah.
to these animals.
Yeah. It was very a very unique spin on just reality and making it into sort of like a what's it called? The nursery rhyme, not nursery rhymes, but like the nursery stories, you know, but it's like I think you even said on the book it's an adult nursery story or something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember if I said that.
And just because her name was Alice and it was
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it was an adult nursery rhyme isn't the right word, but nursery story just pops into my mind, but it makes it very easy to relate to real life in a story form, like animation, it seems like.
Right.
Yeah, that was another fabulous book. Um, there was something else I was going to ask you. Well, I like asking people, like, because going back to my whole point of this podcast is for people to share what their life's been like following dreams and their experience. And I know a lot of people are, I'm sure there's very many people out there that have no clue how to even identify a dream, let alone how to pursue it. And so I want, if you can give some little like baby steps or some tips that for viewers that can help them just recognizing their dreams, like how it might feel like when they see something or hear something or something. How would you suggest somebody starts paying attention?
I'd say start paying attention to your heart and to your intuition. And that was not something I grew up with. You know, the farm was very practical, pragmatic, logical, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I entered the world of creativity, then I recognized that there were things here that it didn't have a logic or a reason to it necessarily. And so then when those came along to me, like a screenplay, you know, going out and speaking and whatever, it's just that, that felt right for me. And so it's kind of paying attention to that other side of yourself. That's the intuitive part, the heart part, that is the true self, whatever your true self is. Because I think we're born into places that are not really our true self, that may be pieces of ourself, but not our true nature. And it's like these moments can open you to that. Does that answer?
Yes, totally. And I really like because intuition is something also we could go into a whole, talk about that.
Right.
People just getting in touch with how that feels, but directing the intuition more towards the heart and getting outside of that head, I think would be a big help in people being able to pursue paying attention to their dreams. And you did it excellently you didn't have really the intended outcome.
No.
You were just...
I was just rolling with it.
Yeah, you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It helped you. You wanted to share it with other people, and you thought it important enough, you know, to do that with. And just went along with it.
Yeah, I just felt compelled to do it. I felt like this was mine to do. And so that was mine to do, and so I did it. And then part of, I became at that point, I became kind of resentful of my farming background, that I was never encouraged to do anything else. Wasn't encouraged to go to college, And so, but what I really could recognize from that in retrospect was my work ethic, and everything that I gained there, I could apply and use here. And that was kind of a good base infrastructure kind of a thing. So it was like kind of combining the two.
I can see where, just when you mentioned that, the resentment of your past and your upbringing, somebody could get really stuck in that resentment.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I mean, you really went through some processes to get past that, because then all this other stuff opened up for you.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have, I'm sure.
Right. No.
Yeah. So another reason to learn how to put the past behind you, whatever it is, because it's also another block to getting in touch with dreams, because it's a distraction. If it's a distraction to be trying to think about holding on to that upset and anger, and why couldn't this have been, why couldn't I have been, thinking about dreams when I was a kid? Why did I have to be, live on a farm?
Right.
All this. But how you've got such a great way of looking at the flip side, the reason why it was like that, finding the positive out of it, which that's amazing. That's really a gift.
Well, that came later, and it was kind of like my, I'm always analyzing things, and that's part of, writing down, that I came to realize that, what I learned on the farm, the hard work, that kind of a structured thing could serve me. I didn't have to hold on to it, tightly and say, well, it had to be this way, it had to be that way. And, like my father said, well, you can't earn money that way, And, well, I still haven't earned money that way, so I guess, okay, Dad.
Oh, well, that's a fascinating journey that you've had. And it's so cool to be hearing being 80, and how inspiring that is for anybody younger, or even the same age, or even older, for people to realize that it's never too late.
Yeah, and the last book that I wrote that just came out last year, and it's all about dreams and imagination. It's all of the stuff of what I didn't have, and I've kind of put it into that book.
And we're going to be, I'm going to have a listing of how people can get in contact with you about either through email or texting or something. But it'll be at the end of the caption here. Somehow I'll be posting that.
Okay.
Because I've loved your books. They were just so entertaining.
Oh, thank you. Authors love hearing that.
No, they were just very engaging, and just so just refreshing, just fun. They were fun to read. And,
great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And even the artist that you had that did the dragon, the dragon one. What was that one called?
Figgy Newton, There Be Dragons.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It's fun hearing your gift with words and just storytelling and getting inside your creative mind. So what a loss that would have been had you not pursued.
Yeah.
Not even for you, it wasn't even identified as a dream. It was just something you enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
And then it refined itself more.
Yes. And it wasn't that I became resentful because it wasn't panning out the way that I thought it was going to. There's a beginning and end, a goal, and you meet it. It wasn't that kind of thing. And it took it was like I was in my 50s when I wrote the first book, and here I am in my 80s and I just did the last one. So it's not like I've cranked out a book a year.
Right, right. And who's counting, you know?
Right, right. I mean, this is just the way that I've done it.
Yeah, the waves, how it flows. Um, well, this has been awesome. I want to just thank you for sharing, what your experience has been, and hopefully, I'm sure, inspiring others to just start paying attention, to what's give them some ideas, some tools that they can be applying to themselves to learn better, to pay attention to, and just do something for the sheer enjoyment of it.
Yes, yeah, for the fun of it.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be something that makes, like it's now going to be your career. It might turn into that, but who knows? I mean, that could even be really shortchanging yourself. But just to, it's worth the investment of time and your life to pursue those, because those ideas are probably part of your life's mission. So
I've come to think that, that everybody has a gift and is trying to discover what that gift is, how to express it while we're here.
mm-hmm.
I really believe that in whatever way that wants to come out.
Mm-hmm. And not, like you said earlier, not thinking so much with the left side, thinking with the heart, which means not also looking at, well, how much am I going to make on this? What are the guarantees that it's going to work? And just letting that go.
Yeah.
Because you never know who you'll meet along the path.
Or what's around the corner.
Yeah, what's next? So thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I've had fun.
Awesome. So thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of The Dream Gardener. I'm sure Joan's gotten some ideas sparked in you, and start writing them down. Take a tip from her writing class too. Maybe we were talking about this earlier, but you were you don't need to write like complete sentences. If you've gotten ideas, like a thought or a sketch, take notes like that and just see what surfaces. And
Yeah.
that could even help other people for getting closer to their dreams. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.